The Money Pit discovery legend begins in 1795 when teenager Daniel McGinnis saw strange lights offshore. He went to search for the source in a rowboat that led him to Oak Island. McGinnis explored and noticed an old ship's block and tackle hanging from a branch of an oak tree. Beneath there, a sunken circle of earth described as 8 to 14 feet in diameter led him to believe the site contained buried treasure. McGinnis recruited 2 friends named Vaughn and Smith to excavate the depression. They found platforms of worked oak logs at 10, 20, and 30 feet. They abandoned their pursuit due to limited resources. The site was untouched until 1803 when the Onslow Company re-excavated the shaft to a depth of 90 feet. They found strange marks of some type every 10 feet. They continued digging until they found an inscribed stone bearing mysterious marks and symbols. The stone was removed and the work stopped. The shaft filled with water overnight. Efforts to extract the water were unsuccessful and the site was again abandoned. The 3 boys story became the popular version, but previously it was told that the 3 were men. There are many differing details about the discovery of the pit. Judge Debrecey, in his History of Lunenburg County, 1st edition, says McGinnis, Ball and A. Vaughn were involved, with no mention of Smith. This is intriguing because of Samuel Ball's involvement with the island. One account says the 3 friends were on a fishing trip, another says a hunting trip. While some say they were together, others say it was just McGinnis, who then went for Smith and Vaughn. There are many problems with all these accounts. The biggest is that Daniel McGinnis was not a teenager, but 37 years old in 1795. Newspaper articles from the 1860s state, sometime after the arrival of these persons, a Mr. McGinnis went to Oak Island to make a farm, when he discovered the spot in question from its being sunken and from the position of 3 oak trees, which stood in a triangular form round the pit. McGinnis arrived in the area between 1785 and 1787 and purchased his first Oak Island property in 1788. John Smith arrived in the area during 1784 at the age of 14, and his family owned lots on Oak Island during this time. The Vaughn family became established in the area from the 1760s, and the family owned several Oak Island lots prior to the arrival of McGinnis and Smith. Testimony indicates McGinnis was already aware of the pit and was interested prior to coming to Oak Island, and suggests that work was already started. The Money Pit site was on Lot 18, which was owned by Caspar Wollenhaupt, whose family was from Hesse, Germany. He would sell Lot 18 to John Smith in 1795. It is known that Wollenhaupt had a contract to build a ship or ships in the early 1790s. He was involved in the raid on Lunenburg in 1782. Wollenhaupt, a wealthy merchant, acted as a messenger for the American privateers to negotiate. Wollenhaupt, along with Jonathan Prescott, Robert Melvin, Reverend John Seckham, and others, owned lots on Oak Island. These men are suspected of aiding the American cause and being involved in a smuggling operation on the island. Evidence suggests that the Money Pit story is based on the Masonic Holy Royal Arch degree. When the degree was founded about 1740, it was based on the legend of Enoch, one of the legendary patriarchs from the Book of Genesis who predated the flood. Sometime between 1740 and around 1800, the legend of the degree was changed from Enoch to the building of the Second Temple. This was at the time of the Jews returning from captivity in Babylon. Legend states that Jewish Freemasons were taken as captives from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar and were bound by triangular chains. This was a great insult by the Babylonian king because, to the Jews, the triangle or delta symbol was a symbol of their god. In the legend, Enoch is taken to heaven and is shown a triangular plate bearing the name of God, then a vision of an underground vault with 9 arches, one upon another, and a white marble pedestal. God commands Enoch to build this, as well as 2 pillars of brass and marble, containing all the knowledge of mankind. This is later seen as the pillars at the entrance to the Temple of Solomon. The story continues to Solomon, who is commanded to build not only a temple but also an underground corridor, and he is promised that on completing the temple, then ruins of an ancient building upon vertical arches is discovered. Solomon tells his 3 architects to investigate. They lift each keystone by its ring, and in the 9th arch they discover the pedestal and the triangular plate. This story introduces the 3 architects or sojourners, Stokin, Jacobert, and Giblim. The Holy Royal Arch degree appears to be the source of the Money Pit legend, although it is more like the 13th degree of the Scottish Rite today. Let's compare both stories. In the Masonic legend, the Vault of Enoch is discovered and excavated by 3 sojourners. The remains of Enoch's temple are discovered, being a roofless temple of large unhewn stones. The 3 sojourners find the roofs of 9 successive vaults, vertically aligned down into the earth. Enoch concealed the secret name of God, known as the Grand Secret, engraved on a white porphyry stone, in the bowels of the earth. When the 3 sojourners discovered the hidden treasure vault, their crowbar accidentally strikes a rock and makes a hollow sound, revealing the existence of the vault underneath. In the Oak Island legend, the Money Pit is discovered and excavated by McInnes, Smith, and Vaughan. The trio discovered a layer of flagstones only 2 feet below the surface when they start excavating. There are 9 successive layers of oak logs at 10 feet intervals going down. There's the inscribed stone found at about the 90-foot depth in the Oak Island Money Pit. The searchers of the Onslow Company sank a crowbar into the bottom of the Money Pit and struck a flat wooden surface which they interpreted as the top of a treasure chest. The similarities are clear. From the apocryphal Book of Enoch, and again I raised my eyes to heaven, and saw a high roof, with 7 water channels on it, and those channels discharged much water into an enclosure. And I looked again, and behold, springs opened on the floor of that large enclosure, and water began to bubble up, and to rise above the floor. And I looked at that enclosure until its whole floor was covered by water. Does this indicate that a replica of Enoch's vault was built on Oak Island and searchers recognized this legend? Is that one of the reasons Freemasons have been so interested in Oak Island? From Mackey's The History of Freemasonry, he had received a prophetic vision. He erected above ground 2 pillars, one of marble to withstand the destructive influences of fire, and one of brass to resist the action of water. On the pillar of brass he engraved the history of the creation, the principles of the arts and sciences, and the doctrines of speculative masonry as they were then practiced. And on the pillar of marble he inscribed in hieroglyphic characters the information that near the spot where they stood a precious treasure was deposited in a subterranean vault. Who was behind this recreation? John Dee is a prime suspect in the Oak Island mystery. Dee was looking to discover lost knowledge and recover the wisdom he believed was hidden in books of antiquity. Among these books was the fabled Book of Enoch, which he believed was a book that described the magic system and source of hidden mystical knowledge used by Enoch. According to Genesis 5 verse 24, Enoch walked with God, and Hebrews 11 verse 5 states that he was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. In 1581, Dee became entirely obsessed with the occult. Many wonder what the reason was for Dee's change in behavior. Dee wrote in his personal journal that God had sent good angels to communicate directly with mankind. By 1582, he was collaborating with Edward Kelly to communicate with them. The two recorded a language called Enochian that Dee believed was taught to Enoch and was the last human to use it. What drove Dee to begin these activities related to Enoch? It's interesting that Dee and the money pit story are both woven to Enoch. This suggests a correlation between the two and presents numerous questions. Was the money pit an ancient construction whose location was rediscovered by Dee from ancient texts? Was it newly constructed in the 1500s and 1600s by Dee, Bacon, and associates to hide artifacts, knowledge, etc.? Was it later re-engineered and booby-trapped to hide what was there and its purpose? How is this related to the formation of speculative Freemasonry? Were the surrounding caverns and tunnels used through time to hide treasure and in smuggling operations before a booby trap was tripped?